Richard Carter's name was respected throughout Chicago's business circles. Whenever a new entrepreneur started a company, people would say, "Think like Carter." Whenever a difficult deal came up, people would say, "Learn from Richard Carter." But inside his own home, things were very different. His daughter Emma was 27 years old, intelligent and outspoken. His son Ethan was 24, ambitious, confident, and so sure of himself that he rarely imagined he could be wrong. Both had grown up surrounded by luxury. Private schools, international vacations, designer clothes, and a beautiful mansion were simply normal parts of life. After decades of hard work, 62-year-old Richard had finally begun enjoying the dreams he had postponed for years: fishing trips, road trips, and classic cars. Yet to his family, these hobbies seemed childish and embarrassing. One evening, Richard walked into the dining room wearing a bright vacation shirt and carrying a travel brochure. Excitedly, he announced that he would be joining a classic car road trip in Montana next month. Emma rolled her eyes and said, "Dad, you're 62. Why are you acting like a college kid?" Linda sighed and added, "Sometimes your behavior makes me wonder if you're really a family man." Then Ethan delivered the most painful comment of all. Looking directly at his father, he said, "Honestly, Dad, what have you ever done for this family except make money and spend it on yourself?" The room fell silent. Richard didn't argue. He didn't get angry. He simply replied, "Maybe one day you'll understand." Ethan laughed. Richard quietly folded the brochure, put it in his pocket, and left the room. Later that night, Richard sat alone in his study. The walls were covered with awards, certificates, and family photographs. In one picture, a young Ethan sat proudly on his shoulders. In another, little Emma smiled while holding his tie. Richard stared at the photos for a long time before whispering to himself, "I didn't forget how to be a father. I just forgot how to explain my silence." In the following weeks, everyone remained busy with their own lives. Ethan focused on his startup. Emma stayed occupied with friends and social events. Linda often sided with the children whenever Richard was discussed. None of them realized that the things Richard enjoyed now were actually dreams he had postponed for decades. When Richard was 24 years old, he had almost nothing. He worked night shifts in a warehouse and spent mornings working part-time in a garage. Linda was pregnant and money was always tight. Richard dreamed of one day driving across America in a restored classic car. Then Emma was born and the dream was postponed. When Ethan arrived, it was locked away completely. Richard used the money he had saved for a fishing boat to pay for Emma's private school tuition. When Ethan needed surgery, Richard sold the dream car he had been restoring. While his friends enjoyed vacations, he worked overtime. Every sacrifice was made for his children. Years passed, and Carter Manufacturing grew from a small workshop into a million-dollar company. But inside the house, those sacrifices became invisible. Richard never spoke about them. He never reminded anyone what he had given up. Perhaps that was his greatest mistake. Sacrifices that make no noise are often the easiest to overlook. His family continued, believing he was selfish, never realizing that the life they enjoyed had been built on dreams he quietly gave away for them. One day, Ethan's life suddenly fell apart. He had spent months preparing for a major investment deal. The presentation was strong, the numbers looked solid, and success seemed guaranteed. Then an investor closed the file and placed a document on the table. "Mr. Carter," he said, "we found serious issues in your company records. Someone submitted false numbers, and right now all evidence points to you." Ethan's face turned pale. Within days, the deal collapsed. Headlines began appearing online, accusing him of misleading investors. Partners distanced themselves. Employees panicked. For the first time in his life, Ethan realized that money, confidence, and education could not protect him from every storm. Late one night, while Ethan sat alone in his dark office, the door opened. An older man with white hair and a calm expression walked in. His name was Thomas Reed. "Are you Ethan Carter?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "Richard Carter est son." Ethan braced himself for another lecture about his father. Instead, Thomas said, "22 years ago, your father saved my company, my family, and my future." Ethan was stunned. For the first time, He heard someone speak about Richard with admiration and respect. Thomas reviewed the documents, contacted his legal team, and launched an investigation. Days later, the truth emerged. Ethan's business partner, Caleb, had been secretly manipulating financial records and planned to blame Ethan for everything. When the truth was finally revealed, Thomas stood before the investors and said, "Richard Carter's name is not built on money. It is built on character." The room fell silent. Something inside Ethan shattered. The image he had carried for years, the image of a selfish and irresponsible father, collapsed completely. That evening, Ethan returned home and sat beside Richard in the living room. Quietly, he asked, "Dad, why didn't you ever tell us about these things?" Richard smiled gently and replied, "Because fathers don't keep receipts of love, Ethan." Those words struck Ethan deeper than anything he had ever heard. The next morning, Ethan went into the basement and opened an old wooden box he had ignored for years. Inside were unpaid bills, receipts, loan records, and a worn diary. As he read the pages, tears filled his eyes. One entry said, "Today I sold my dream car." Ethan's school deposit was due. He smiled in his new uniform. Worth it. Another read, "Emma wants piano lessons. I could delay the fishing boat another year." Page after page revealed sacrifices Richard had never spoken about. That evening, Ethan placed the diary on the dinner table. Emma and Linda read it in silence. Their hands trembled as they realized how much Richard had given up for them. Emma apologized through tears. "Dad, I thought you were wasting your life. I didn't know you had already spent most of it on us." Linda whispered, "I forgot the man who stood between this family and every storm." Then Ethan stood and looked directly at his father. "Dad, I was ashamed of your name, but yesterday, your name saved mine." A few months later, Richard finally took his classic car onto the highway. But this time, he wasn't alone. Ethan sat in the passenger seat holding a cup of coffee. Emma sat in the back, taking selfies. Linda laughed while trying to take pictures of everyone. The golden sunset stretched across the horizon. Ethan smiled and asked, "Dad, where are we going?" Richard replied, "Somewhere I wanted to go 30 years ago." Emma asked, "Why didn't you go back then?" Richard glanced at his family in the rearview mirror and smiled. "Because I was building the people I want to take with me." Moral: parent sacrifices are not always loud. Sometimes they are hidden in school tuition payments, late-night shifts, old trucks, abandoned dreams, and tears they never let you see. So notice their mistakes if you must, but never forget their sacrifices.